This is the story of the maybe tree. Maurice was sad. He was a glum mole. Moles are usually jolly creatures who enjoy the company of others and love nothing better than sitting together eating a delicious supper of grubs, worms and plant roots. But none of the other moles wanted to sit and eat with Maurice. In fact, many of them spent their days teasing him. Maurice didn't like the dark. He was scared of the small tunnels that moles like to dig. The soft, rich soil that he knew he should enjoy terrified him. He didn't even go and visit the other moles in their little underground houses. You see, poor Maurice was claustrophobic, and because of this, no one wanted to be Maurice's friend. Now, you may not know this, but moles like to race. They spend most of their days racing across fields, hills and valleys. They race all day, and there's even a mole racing championship. Maurice had never raced. He'd never won a medal in the championship, and all because he didn't like to tunnel down across the fields, hills and valleys. Instead, he watched from above as the trails of soil appeared across the grass. He could see all the moles tunnelling furiously to the winning post with their small spady hands. One day, while all the others were racing, Maurice sat on the molehill and looked across the valley where he lived. He was daydreaming of a little house above the ground with a roof, a garden and some pretty curtains in the windows. As he was staring into the distance, he could see a tiny twinkle of light moving very quickly towards him, darting and zigzagging its way across the blades of grass. As he stared, the light got brighter and more twinkly. It also seemed to be getting faster and bigger. Before he knew it, Maurice was thrown into the air with a big bump. He spun over and over and then landed upside down, face first onto the molehill he'd been sitting on. He felt two little hands pull him back onto his feet, and he was staring straight into a shiny, sparkly little face. He'd never seen such a pretty face before, and never one quite so glittery. She was wearing a dress made of silvery cobwebs dotted all over with crystals, and she smelt of sugar and fresh summer air. "Hello," said the face. "Hello," said Maurice. "Sorry about that. I only got my wings 2 weeks ago and I'm not very good at breaking." "That's okay," Maurice said a little hesitantly. You're very shiny and bright." "I'm a fairy. Oh, sorry, I should have introduced myself. Peggy, new fairy, getting brighter and shinier by the day." "Now, Maurice, we are in a terrible hurry. I need to take you on a journey and the maybe tree doesn't wait for anybody. Once a year it lights up and I have other creatures to gather into its branches for the very special night. Quick, quick!" "Sorry? The maybe tree." "The what tree?" "Never mind, I'll explain on the way. Come with me." And with that, Maurice did as he was told, although he really had no idea why. Maurice trotted along beside Peggy, trying to keep up with her and thinking it must surely be time for his morning nap. He was feeling a little sleepy. But his new fairy friend was in a terrible hurry and kept saying that this was her first job and she had to get it right. Maurice didn't have the heart to let her down, so picked up a bit of speed and thought what good exercise he must be getting. Suddenly, Peggy, in a cloud of glitter, stopped in her tracks. Maurice, he was a bit relieved. In a small sparkly whisper, Peggy told him that she had a very special map, which she was going to show him now. It was a magical map. From out of her pocket, she produced a shiny silver map, which, when she let go, floated in the air, next to them all on its own. From her pocket, she pulled out her glittering wand of crystal. Stuck to the tip of the wand was a miniature version of Peggy flying with wings outstretched. Apparently, she told him, this was so they never got their wands mixed up. Maurice nodded. It's a very good idea. Together they looked at the map, and with her wand, Peggy pointed out Maurice's valley, and he could read his name written there. There were other names dotted about too, but Peggy told him that she had to gather up all of those names and bring them with her. And Maurice was her first on her list because he was extra special. First stop was to go and meet Honeybear and Brian. Peggy folded up the map, closed her blue eyes and thought for a moment. Let out a squeak and tapped Maurice on the nose with her wand. "Ouch," said Maurice. "No time to lose. You have to have some wings. We need to fly." Well, have you ever seen a mole fly? Well, neither had Maurice until that day, until he saw his own reflection in the pond below him as he soared upwards into the clouds holding hands with Peggy. For a mole that wasn't terribly brave, Maurice was doing very well. After flying for about 10 minutes or so, Peggy said, "That's the place," and they floated down towards the ground. Coming in a little too fast for his liking, they landed on top of what he thought was a very soft and squidgy furry bed. They bounced off and dusted themselves down. The fairy bed moved. 2 amber-coloured eyes opened. 2 little triangular ears twitched, and then it smiled. "Hello there," said the fairy bed. Maurice's eyes opened wide in terror. A cat! Cats don't like moles. Cats hunt moles. And even though Maurice hated enclosed spaces, he dived straight under a bush. He could hear the cat chuckling away. Then Peggy started laughing, and then he heard another laugh, a squeaky one. "Hello, Mole." "I'm Brian," said the squeaky voice. Maurice opened one eye, then the other, and the squeaky voice belonged to a little field mouse. "Don't be afraid of Honey Bear. She's my friend. She doesn't hunt. She doesn't like to be mean. She's a cat who's a friend to everyone." "Are you sure?" said Maurice in a very shaky voice. "Quite sure." Maurice peeked out from under the bush and had a good look at Honey Bear, who was still smiling. She was round, soft and cushiony in all the right places, with a thick silky ginger fur that shone in the sunshine, and she did have a very kind face. So, with little shuffled steps, Maurice walked over to introduce himself. Always a polite mole, he shook hands with Brian, touched a paw with Honey Bear, and told them both his name was Maurice. Honey Bear smiled, stood up and opened a sunny yellow picnic basket. She laid out a soft cream-coloured blanket onto the grass and placed some teacup saucers, plates and a big cat-shaped teapot down on it. From out of this big basket she also produced the biggest and most glittery pink cake Maurice had ever seen. Then some meringues, strawberries and clotted cream appeared, alongside sandwiches which had all been cut into the shape of a cat. "Are you hungry, Maurice?" said Honey Bear. Oh, Maurice was very hungry indeed. All that flying had taken it out of him, and he really did like the look of that cake. They all sat together on the blanket, a fairy, a mole, a mouse and a cat. They chatted about nothing in particular, but enjoyed each other's company enormously. Maurice was just beginning to feel a little sleepy, and his eyes were just about to close when, "Oh, my giddy me!" exclaimed Peggy. She stood up. "I've got to be going, no time to stop. I have to find Lettuce and Bertie." And with that, and a cloud of glitter, sparkles and lots of fairy dust, Peggy flew off, leaving them all a little bemused on the blanket. Time for a nap, thought Maurice, and closed his eyes. Brian curled up with Honey Bear and settled down to sleep too. She smiled, put one soft paw around Brian, and fell asleep. George, Bertie and Lettuce. A couple of hours later, Maurice was woken up by the strangest sound. Bzzz-choo! Bzzz-choo! "Did you hear that, Brian?" asked Maurice. Bzzz-choo, bzzz-choo! Brian nodded. "Go back to sleep, Poppets. It's just George sneezing," said Honey Bear. "Who's George?" asked Maurice and Brian together. "George is over there inside that rose sneezing. He's my bee friend." Brian hopped onto Maurice's shoulders and they both took off to investigate. "I meant to ask you, Brian, why do you only have 3 legs? I know you can walk, but it must be a bit difficult missing one." "Well, I lost it in an accident when I was little. I can walk, but I sometimes get a little tired, so Honey Bear carries me. She found me in a field one day, picked me up with her tail, and we've been friends ever since." Maurice understood and nodded. As they got closer to the rose, the strange sneezing got louder. Bzzz-choo, bzzz-choo! With the last ooh, George shot out of the rose and bounced to the ground onto his yellow and black stripy bottom. He sneezed again, stood up, sneezed again, and again, and again. Poor George didn't stop sneezing for 10 whole minutes. Maurice handed him a handkerchief to blow his nose on, and they just waited politely until George stopped, which he did. Eventually. "Are you okay, George?" Maurice said kindly. "Well, my eyes are watering a little bit and my nose is a little tingly, but apart from that I'm okay, thank you. I'm trying very hard to collect the pollen to make some honey, but my hay fever stops me. And the queen bee has told me that I'm not a busy bee, but a lazy bee, and I can't live with them, and if I don't make any money, I don't make any honey, and so now I don't have a home." George's eyes watered a little bit more, and then he let out big sobs of sadness and huge tears ran down his cheeks. There, George." Maurice put his arms on his little winged shoulders to comfort him. "It's okay. I don't like dark enclosed tunnels. And I'm a mole." George looked at him, sneezed a bit, and then smiled and laughed. And then he laughed so hard, and then he sneezed again for 10 whole minutes. They all laughed so much they woke up Honey Bear, who came to investigate, and when they told her, she laughed and rolled around on the grass, like sometimes cats do. Suddenly, a light breeze from above attracted their attention. When they all looked up, they saw sparkles and glitter falling to the ground. Peggy flew into sight, followed by a small tawny owl, and with what looked like a little bird on its back. Peggy floated to the ground and landed on Honey Bear, who was by now quite used to being a soft landing. The tawny owl, however, made a bit of a wonky landing to the left of Honey Bear and did so with quite a thud, throwing the little bird into the air. Everyone watched the little bird, waiting for her wings to stretch out and fly, but it didn't happen. So Maurice quickly removed his hat and ran backwards and forwards under her until she fell and he managed to catch her. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief and clapped Maurice for his quick thinking. "Bertie, I told you to aim for the fluffy, soft ginger fur," Peggy said a little crossly. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I always make the wrong decisions. I'm supposed to be wise like other owls, but I always keep getting it wrong. Sorry, Lettuce, I hope you're not too bruised." "I'm all right, Bertie. Don't worry about me. I've fallen out of more trees and off more bushes than you'll ever know. It's what happens when you're a long-tailed tit who can't fly." Well, Maurice was a little confused. This really was turning out to be a very interesting day. Before he could do anything further, though, Peggy exclaimed, "Absolutely no time to lose. We have to be at the May Tree by sunset. Brown and George, you hop onto Honey Bear, please. Lettuce, I know it was a bumpy landing, but would you mind sitting on Bertie's head again, please, and try to steer him in the right direction? Maurice, you'll need wings again, and actually, Honey Bear, so will you." So Honey Bear packed up her picnic basket, strapped it to her back, and helped Brian onto her tail. George held tightly to her ear. Peggy tapped Maurice and Honey Bear on the nose with her wand, and they both grew their own magical wings. They both held hands with Peggy and took off into the sunny, cloudless sky, with Bertie and Lettuce following closely behind. Well, sort of. Bertie started off by flying in completely the wrong direction, but then Lettuce soon found that chirping gently into Bertie's ears and guiding him left and right and up and down seemed to work, and soon he was back on track. Maurice was getting better at this flying thing too. He even dared to do a couple of somersaults as he flew alongside Peggy. And as he did, he thought that even though this was a very strange day, indeed with many surprises, he had some lovely new friends. And these friends liked Maurice for who he was, a kind and friendly mole who doesn't like dark, small places.